You voted and the results are in. The top 10 must-add players for this week in fantasy baseball is coming up next on Beat the Odds. Don't go anywhere. Hello sports fans and welcome back to another episode of Beat the Odds. I've got your top 10 hottest players to pick up for week 20 in fantasy baseball. And I want to thank all of you for casting 455 total votes, which was the driving force behind this week's list. Now before I reveal the list, if you're a fan of this content, please smash that like button. And if you're new here and appreciate quality fantasy baseball insight, don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so that way you don't miss an episode. Also, keep an eye out for the polls on who you should be picking up ahead of week 21. Do you have a burning fantasy baseball question? Ask me on Q. Go to askmeonq.com/beattheodds, submit your question, and for a small fee, I will personalize a response and send it to your email. It's super easy to do, and it's a great way to get fantasy baseball advice while also supporting this channel. Now let's kick off this list at number 10. We've got Jock Peterson, 49% owned over the last 2 weeks. He's got 8 runs scored, 3 homers, 9 runs batted in, and a .344 average. If you're the type of manager that likes to employ platoon hitters, then Peterson should be in your lineup against all righties. Peterson holds his own against a rare lefty-lefty matchup, but he has been absolutely tearing the cover off the ball against righties to a tune of a .956 OPS this season. With the fantasy baseball playoffs just around the corner, it may not be a bad idea to employ a strategy where you can use a Peterson as a part-time player on your roster. Let's go to number 9. We have Brendan Rodgers, 20% owned over the last 2 weeks. He's got 8 runs scored, 2 homers, 9 runs batted in, and a .372 average. The Rockies lineup seems to be in flux right now, but one thing is for certain, they are prioritizing at-bats for Brendan Rodgers. And that's not a fluke, given that he has hit .392 so far this month. He's not the flashiest of names to roster, but he does have a productive spot in the order for a team that calls Coors Field home. If you are a light and middle fielder, then you should really give Rodgers a look. Let's go to number 8. We have Lucas Urshak, 34% owned over the last 2 weeks. He's got 2 saves, 5 strikeouts, no ERA, and a .56 whip. There is a sea of available arms that you can pick up off the waiver wire and you can put in your closer spot here. And Urshak was your choice for this episode, and you chose well. He has been lights out all season, and he should run away with the closer role in Kansas City. I think the stat that pops out for me is that opponents are having a hard time squaring up his pitches, as their exit velocity sits at only 85.1 miles per hour. Let's go to number 7. We have Joey Bart, 23% owned over the last 2 weeks. He's got 7 runs scored, 3 homers, 7 runs batted in, and a .300 average. Bart was completely overlooked in the fantasy world as he fell out of contention with the Giants. Now with the Buccos, he is showing his first-round pedigree that we've all been waiting on. His bat is not to be underestimated, as he's one of the more powerful bats that you're going to find at catcher. I think his home run pace is sustainable, and if you can find a way to get him into your lineup on most days, he may get to 20 home runs by season's end. Let's go to number 6. We have TJ Friedl, 40% owned, 6 runs scored, 4 homers, 12 runs batted in, and a .267 average over the last 2 weeks. I think we can all agree that TJ Friedl, despite his StatCast showing, is just an absolutely fun player to roster in fantasy. He always seems to overreach, and he is successful in doing so. He now finds himself hitting in the middle of the order in Cincinnati, which I'm sure you all know is a very good place to hit. I think it's important to point out that he has started 20 of the team's last 22 games. Moving on to number 5, we have Jake McCarthy, 60% owned over the last 2 weeks. He's got 8 runs scored, 3 homers, 16 runs batted in, 2 stolen bases, and a .417 average. Your number 1 player in Yahoo Fantasy over the last few weeks, McCarthy has been on an absolute tear. There are some holes in his offensive profile, which was part of the reason why he was sent down last season, but he's hiding them really well right now. McCarthy, along with Jock Peterson, Josh Bell, Corbin Carroll, and Ketel Marte, have all been clicking at the same time and has propelled the team into a relatively secure spot in the standings. Let's move on to number 4. We have Yusei Kikuchi, 48% owned over the last 2 weeks. He's got 2 wins, 13 strikeouts, a 2.45 ERA, and a .91 whip. Kikuchi has been exactly what the Astros needed and more. He has been dominant in his last 3 starts, and the Astros are looking like the team that's making the move up the standings as well. Kikuchi's profile is well known to this point. He's got an electric fastball and a wipeout slider, but it's actually his changeup that has become his most effective pitch. Kikuchi also is going to start twice this week. Moving on to number 3, we have Junior Caminero, 54% owned. No runs, no homers, no runs batted in, 2 stolen bases, and a .385 average since his call-up. Now the long-awaited call-up is finally here. It took Caminero some time, but he's now rejoined the big club. The Rays happen to like to run, and Caminero's speed is actually in the 83rd percentile, so we may see a few more steals from him before the season's out. He's going to be a fixture in this lineup for years to come, and the Rays are slotting him in the 5-hole right away to capture that production. Let's go to number 2. We have Spencer Arrighetti, 48% owned. Over the last 2 weeks, he's got a win, 30 strikeouts, a 3.38 ERA, and a 1.02 whip. Arrighetti has been a popular pickup over the last couple of weeks. The 30 strikeouts that he has logged in the last 14 days is a major reason why. Now, he didn't have his best stuff in his last game against the lowly White Sox, but he is absolutely worth owning until he logs a couple of poor starts in a row. His next chance is against Boston this week, where he just recently picked up a win in 7 innings with 13 strikeouts. And finally, at number 1, we have Tyler Stevenson, 46% owned. Over the last 2 weeks, he's got 7 runs scored, 3 homers, 7 runs batted in, and a .283 average. I have been promoting Stevenson pretty much all season long, so I was quite happy to see that he led the vote getters in players for this week. Now here's why you should pick him up. He's a catcher who plays almost every day and hits 3rd on the Reds. And he's been productive as well, as he now has set a new career high with 16 homers, and he still has a month and a half of baseball yet to go. And that's going to do it here for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I'm going to sign off for now, but I will catch you guys on the next episode.